The Immigration and Foreigners Bill has sparked fierce debate in Parliament today. The BJP has hailed it as being vital for national security, curbing illegal immigration from Bangladesh and Myanmar. The opposition, led by the Congress party, has hit out at it as being unconstitutional, warning of rights violations and the loss of talent in terms of those who come into the country or are denied that right. Well, joining us now are Aparajita Sarangi, BJP MP, and Dr. Ajoy Kumar, a former MP and national spokesperson of the Congress. Thank you both very much for being with us. Dr. Ajoy Kumar, let me come to you first. Why do you argue that shifting the burden of proving legal status onto individuals violates constitutional rights? How is there an alternative that you propose?
No, so Vishnu, I think one is we need to look at the Act on what the Act actually says. The Act says that the immigration officer can refuse your entry. Yes. So it's not, so we have to be very clear on that. This is the authority given to an immigration officer to deny on national security, on medical health reasons, etc., very wide definition. Okay. All acts, all governments, and irrespective of whether their government, our government, always brings in, and very often people bring in the UAPA. The UAPA was the intentions were honorable, but today the UAPA has got 97% people being acquitted. Majority of the people who are under the UAPA right now are mostly human rights lawyers and human rights defendants. We are saying that this act gives so much of power without a definition. Now, taking an example, that somebody comes from abroad as a guest to NDTV and he's written some articles against the government of India at that time, and which is perfectly all right. And the government of India can send him back. And our issue is that you don't have to give a reason. That's what the Act, what I was able to read the details of it. The second part is there is no appeal mechanism. Now, if you are and Aparajita is a very a scholarly lady, so I'm just asking a simple question. If you're the mother of democracy, we keep saying we are mother of democracy, at least the BJP, then why isn't the process more transparent? The reasons why, like Indian origin people, a lot of Indian origin people support this government and speak against this government, which is perfectly okay. We definitely believe that it is not Myanmar. I mean, so let me disabuse you. It's not Bangladeshis or Myanmar. It is any foreigner who is entering.
Right. So I take your point that this could be used to target or prevent people who are critical of this government from entering. I think that's the basic point that you're trying to say. And
the most important part is, in any process, there's an appeal process.
All right. So where is the appeal process? Let me put that across to Aparajita Sarangi. Ma'am, there are three...
Vishnu, last. And then Aparajita can please take the floor. The rules, the constitution is very clear. Whether you're a foreigner or Indian, the right to equality applies across. You need to, so the Constitution of India, so it's basically it's against the Constitution also. Because the right which you give an Indian citizen, the right to equality, as far as the right to equality in the front of law applies to foreigners.
Okay, so one sec. Now, Ajoy, you've made 100 points. Let me just go across.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to list them. You listed so many points that I haven't been able to note more than two. But I think Aparajita Sarangi, there are two key points. Number one, the power given to immigration officers, right? Is it too much? Number two, is there a right to appeal? Ajoy says that he hasn't been able to get that. And number three, that there is a fundamental lack of equality being granted to those who come to our country. Please respond to that.
A very good evening. At the outset, it's very important to understand why the government of Prime Minister Modi has brought the bill to the Lok Sabha. Let me tell you that the bill has been introduced in the Lok Sabha today. I was also present when the bill was introduced by the Minister of State for Home Affairs, Sri Nityanand Rai ji. Now, hereafter, there will be a lot of debate, deliberation, dialogue, and discussion around the bill. The provisions will be discussed, and the suggestions and views of both the opposition party and the treasury benches would be taken. And thereafter, the next course of action would be adopted. So to say that the bill has been passed, the bill has been brought to discussion, I mean, this is too premature to discuss about the provisions of the bill at this juncture, number one. Number two, important to understand why we brought this bill. See, there are 4 acts which are governing the administration of the foreigners and the immigrants. One, Foreigners Act 1946, Immigration Act 2000, Passport Act 1920, and the Registration of Foreigners Act 1939. Now imagine all these acts were formulated in extraordinary times around the First and the Second World War. So they are definitely irrelevant in the present context, number one. Number two, many of the provisions of these acts are overlapping with each other. So I think there is a lot of lack of clarity, I would say, when you actually go through all these 4 acts. And number 3, let me tell you that most important is we need to have concern for the national security and territorial integrity. This particular government attaches a lot of importance to these 2 expressions, national security and territorial integrity. So it's very important to have a comprehensive legislation which would look into all the issues put together and then ensure that the provisions of the new legislation are implemented properly.
Okay.
Now, we are not a country which has brought these kinds of reforms, or rather aiming at these kinds of reforms for the first time. Measures have been taken to bring about reforms in this sector also by US, by Hong Kong, by Australia, by Singapore, and by the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. So I think it is a very good step. All of us, all the parliamentarians cutting across party lines must actually respect. And the issue is that there is absolutely no additional expenditure if we implement the provisions of this bill which has been brought to the Lok Sabha today. No recurring or non-recurring expenditure.
All right, so it's an improvement of existing laws with new provisions. I take that point. Let me just go back to Ajoy. Let me go back to Ajoy, and I will come back, to balance this all out. Ajoy, the fact of the matter is that it's not just India looking carefully at who comes into our country, at universities or hospitals. We all know how difficult it is to get a visa, for example, to the United States, to the United Kingdom, parts of the European Union as well. There is a process of safeguards. Every country has its own ones. She's actually listed countries where it's particularly difficult to get a visa to get into. So if India is to take a step back and say, no, we want to know, right, who's coming into our country, is there anything necessarily wrong about that?
No. So it's the tail wagging the dog. Who gives visa at the Indian embassy, Vishnu, at Washington or London, or for that matter, Dhaka? There you don't do anything.
No,
when
you do
land
actually.
Up in India,
But Ajoy, I fact check. Whenever visas take place, even last week somebody was denied entry, even despite the fact that they had somebody ailing in India. That at that level, there is a decision which is taken, and that's not going to change. It's not just the immigration officer.
No, one sec. The amendment which came in is about the immigration officer. What I've read, okay,
yes,
it's not about visa, because it would have been visa would have been a totally different law. I'm just saying, Vishnu, now for a minute. The immigration officer is giving the power without any definition. So if you say against national security, then what is national security threat? You have written against it, you have supported organization. All that has to be defined. It cannot be some random thing. Or take an example, health risk. What is health risk? You're coming from an area which is endemic for AIDS, you're endemic for yellow fever. I can understand all that. The danger with giving one is the danger of that. The second part is not having a repeal mechanism. The third part is they will target and they will continue to target the political opponents. But the most important part, look at hospital. Vishnu, I would request you to look at hospital. The hospitals are supposed to inform who are the foreigners getting treated. How did those foreigners get in? They came, unless you're imagining that this government, which is Parishita ji, your government is so incompetent, which I hope not, is that anybody is crossing the border and coming and getting treated. That is not possible. So people who are coming for treatment must have got a visa. Unless this government is accepting that we can't protect our borders, people are walking in. That's why the hospital should give us data on people who have come for treatment.
All right. Okay, let's get a response to that. Point number
Yeah,
one,
that's
ma'am. Point number one, ma'am. Is it true that the role of the visa officer in embassies abroad might actually be reduced because the immigration officer in India has more powers? I don't think that would necessarily be the case. And number two, what is the logic in, let us say, hospitals having to report who is coming to them for treatment?
See, let me tell you that there is no finality to the provisions that have been proposed by the government. The bill has been introduced. The bill has been brought to the debating stage. There would be debates on each of the provisions of the bill, and it is too premature to talk about what is right and what is wrong in the provision. This is number one. And number two, let me tell you that there should be fear of law. The penalties have been increased. The scale of punishment has gone up. It's very important. Now, here is a government which means business. Now, let me tell you, between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024, about 98,40,000 foreigners had come to India. Many of them stayed back and many of them exited. Now, if the government of India wants to have details about all the passports, the travel documents, and in case of foreigners, the visa, what's wrong? Here is a government which is trying to bring about reforms in the administration of foreigners, foreign matters, and immigration. I think all of us should welcome cutting across party lines.
But ma'am, there's just one question which you haven't answered.
Every action of Prime Minister Modi, there cannot be a negative reaction from everybody.
But ma'am, there's one important point that he raised which you've not answered. And that question is, what constitutes national security?
Yeah, tell me.
What constitutes national security in terms of saying somebody can enter and somebody can't?
That's what I'm saying. I am giving you a particular statistics I gave you, 98.40 lakh in 1 year. And this particular number has been increasing with every passing day. Now, if the government of India, keeping in view the issues of national security, who is coming, who is going, and what are the details of the passport, what is the visa all about, who is the person, from where he has come. So I think what is the problem if we get into these matters, and if there is something illegal, if there is a threat to the security of the nation, if we take action, what's wrong in that? And if the action, if the penalty is increased, I think all of us should welcome. I mean, those who are opposing the raising of the penalty, I think are against the nation, are against national security. So it's a question of Kshatriya, Akhandata, territorial integrity, national security. Do I need to explain? If the foreigners come, foreigners stay and foreigners make an exit. And if the government wants to keep the details, what's wrong about it? And if it doesn't, if something happens, I'm sure these people will create a ruckus as to why the government was not vigilant. So I think here is a government which means business. Here is a government which wants to bring about a comprehensive legislation. Here is a government which is giving teeth to the already existing laws so that there is fear of law. And
all right.
There is peace and order in the society.
Okay, ma'am, I'm running out of time. Let me just give the last 30 seconds to Ajay. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. Go ahead, Ajay.
So, who are these 96 lakh people? I believe they're all legally visa with visa. So the government believes that the foreign ministry is ridiculously incompetent. They are going to give visa left, right, and center. And these guys in Delhi airport and Calcutta airport are left to catch 96 lakhs. Why couldn't you? Because all these 96 lakhs have come legally. So, and if the government doesn't have access to visa data and they need data, I mean, I'm totally shocked because I thought the government, this is the strong sarkar, they should have data, no? That who is gone and who's not gone, visa time is limited. So, Vishnu, she correctly said that it needs debate because it is such a badly made bill. And
all right, okay. I'm interrupting because I'm out of time. And that has nothing to do with either of you, but I'm out of time. So the program ends.